So hello, everyone in America, Israel, Palestine, and wherever you might be watching from. My name is Gili Getz. I'm a board member of Partners for Progressive Israel and your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to our joint memorial, Mourning and Resistance, the making of the Israeli-Palestinian Memorial Day ceremony that will take place on Tuesday, April 13th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time in America, and you can calculate it to wherever you are in the world. This is the last installment of Partners Conversation with Israel and Palestine, a series of informational webinars that bring voices from Israel and Palestine to the American and international audience, providing an important link between progressives in the Middle East and those outside. Partners for Progressive Israel is an American non-for-profit organization dedicated to the achievement of durable and just peace between the state of Israel and its neighbors, which includes an end to Israel's occupation based on a two-state solution. We support Israelis working to ensure social justice, civil rights, and equality for all of Israel's inhabitants. Partners promotes a just Israeli society by cultivating Jewish-era partnership and seeks to deepen American Jews' understanding of the complexity of both Israeli and Palestinian societies. Please visit our website at progressiveisrael.org and make a contribution if you want to help our efforts. We will also put the link in the chat. I want to thank our co-sponsor, J Street, for this webinar. Also make sure to check out and register for the J Street conference happening April 18th and 19th. These are always amazing conferences and will feature prominent political leaders, policymakers, activists, and experts who are at the forefront of promoting Israel-Palestinian peace and an end to the occupation. Also, I like to tell people to put your questions in the Q&A at any time. We'll get to as many as we can, and you can do this as we go. Before I introduce our incredible and inspiring speakers we are so lucky to have with us today, I want to give you some little bit of background on this 16th Joint Israeli-Palestinian Memorial Ceremony. 16 years ago, about 70 Israeli and Palestinian bereaved families did the unthinkable. They mourned together on Yom HaZikaron, Israeli Memorial Day, in the Timna Theater. These families that paid the highest price for this ongoing conflict shared their pain and mourned their loss together. They kept doing it year after year, struggling to accommodate the growing number of people that came and needed to keep moving to bigger and bigger locations. In recent years, the ceremony stopped being an alternative as up to 10,000 people gathered in Park HaYarkon in Tel Aviv, making this the second largest memorial event in all of Israel, right after the government's official ceremony. Last year, as the event was streaming live from Israel and Palestine because of COVID, 200,000 people watched it live and 1 million watched the recording, making this one of the biggest Israeli-Palestinian peace event of all time. Every year, the Israeli government tries to undermine the ceremony by denying permits to Palestinian families, and every year, the Israeli Supreme Court has to intervene. The Israeli right has a vicious campaign in protest of the ceremony, including shouting horrifying slurs at bereaved families and guests who come as they enter. Grieving with Israelis while under military occupation is also breaking a taboo in Palestinian society. On a personal note, I want to say that from here in New York, years ago, I remember coming together in a very small New Israel Fund office with about 10 people to watch the joint ceremony and mourn with our Israeli and Palestinian sisters and brothers. Since then, it came out of the NIA office, overcoming some opposition, and moved to the 14th Street Y with a bigger audience. In the following years, hosted to a standing room only in synagogues like CBST, Congregation Bet Simchat Torah, in New York City, and in Six and I Synagogue in Washington, D.C., and others. I hope this continues I was in Israel for the ceremony in person in 2019, and again experienced the power and transformative nature of this event. On stage, Israelis and Palestinians together, out of the darkest pain and loss, transform victimhood into self-empowerment and despair into hope, demonstrating to the thousands watching that it is possible to change and break the barrier of fear feeding this conflict. All that without for one moment erasing the asymmetry of the conflict and the daily brutality of the occupation. This is what peace looks like. The ceremony is put together by two organizations, partners, a Parents Circle Families Forum, a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization of over 600 families, all of whom have lost an immediate family member to the ongoing conflict. Parents Circle engages and educates on the process of reconciliation as a way of achieving sustainable peace. The other organization is Combatants for Peace, a grassroots movement of Israelis and Palestinians working together to end the occupation and bring peace, freedom, and dignity to both people. It was founded by former fighters on both sides of this active conflict after a leap of faith that led both sides to their first meeting in 2005, where they saw each other, not through gun sights, for the first time. Combatants for Peace works on grassroots organizing and joint nonviolent civil resistance in both Israel and Palestine. I'm so grateful. We have two inspiring leaders from both of these organizations where we can speak today about the ceremony. A short introduction. Layla Alshekh, 16 years after she lost her son to the conflict, she was introduced to the Israeli-Palestinian Brave Families Forum. Today is a member of both Families Forum and Combatants for Peace. She holds dialogue sessions around the world where she tells her story and teaches about conflict and the need for peace and reconciliation. Galia Galili became an activist with Combatants for Peace during the first Gaza invasion. She was inspired to join Combatants for Peace when her eldest of her three sons started thinking about his military service at the age of 14. Thank you so much, Layla and Galia, for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. We know these are intense times as the ceremony coming near. And maybe we can start, Layla, with you. When you could tell us about your incredible journey of getting to this work and doing this incredible, being part of this incredible ceremony.
Thank you so much for this introduction, and good evening for everyone, and good evening, good morning. In the beginning, I want to thank you all for this event, and thank you to give us this opportunity to share with you our experience and our stories and to talk to you about the Memorial Day. So my name is Layla Sheikh. I'm from Bethlehem, Palestine. I was born and raised in Jordan. And 1999, I came here because my husband originally from Bethlehem. And for every Palestinian who born outside Palestine, it's a dream come true to come back and live. After the second uprising, I have my second child. His name was Qusay. And after he became 6 months old, he became very sick because one day before the Israeli soldiers threw tear gas in our village. So we tried to take him to the hospital, but the Israeli soldiers stopped us more than 4 hours. And because of that, at the end of that day, he was died. Since his death, I was very angry, full of anger and, you know, all these bad emotions against the Israel, all the Israeli. For me, I was felt that all of them were responsible about his death. But at the same time, I was going to think of revenge because I know that will never bring my son back. But I take a decision that I don't want to have any kind of relationship with any Israeli person for more than 16 years until I met one of my friends and we about the Burn Circle Family Forum. In fact, in the beginning, I wasn't really interested, and I would say he was crazy. How could he ask me something like this to join? And then he asked me a question. He said, "Why until now you didn't tell your other children about what happened to their brother?" I told him because I don't want them to be part of this cycle of violence. I don't want to lose them. I lost one of them, and that was much more than enough for me. So he said to me, this will be a good chance, not just so to protect your children, maybe to protect other families. So he invited me to a conference in Bethlehem. And since I go there and I saw the Israelis and the Palestinian join and talk to each other like a family members, I was really touched because I want to think that I want to really want to listen. What's the things that make them so close to each other like that? Then when I start to hear their stories and I realized that we share the same pain, we share the same tears. The lost is the lost. It doesn't matter if you're Palestinian or if you are Israelis. Even we have a different, you know, circumstances, many different things, but we're still human. And it was the first time I looked at them as a human like me, not as enemy. And that was really touched my heart. And then I decided to participate in one of the projects called Burn North Project. It's a project about to bring both sides together and let them talk for maybe most of them. It's the first time they sit face to face to each other. So it was the first time I speak about what happened to my son in front of people. And I really couldn't complete my story. I started to cry. And then one of the Israeli women, she came and sat in front of me and she started to apologize. And she said, I know that I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you from my own people. And I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand the world that you couldn't say. And she came and hugged me. And really, I was very, very touched because it was the first time someone talked to me like that, and especially an Israeli person. And she didn't know really by her simple words that she opened my eyes and opened my heart and opened. Sorry, I have bad connection. No. Hello?
Hear you good now. Yeah, we hear you. We hear you great now. Thank you.
Okay. So since that day, I was really touched because, you know, when you feel of hatred and anger, that sometimes close your mind and your heart to understand and realize the truth around you. So from that day, I decided to be a member in the Burn Circle Family Forum and spread the message of reconciliation, just inside Palestine or Israel, even around the world. But the most important thing that I was learning through that journey that it's so easy to talk to people about peace and reconciliation and all these beautiful words, but the most important thing that to feel it from inside, because if you didn't believe it and you didn't talk from your heart, you will never be able to spread this message. And since I start to give lectures even inside Israel, I start to realize and understand the situations and their life. And that helped me to start to look to myself as a survivor, not as a victim, because this is so important to any person. And one of the most important thing, even I learned, and it helped me to take a decision to forgive those people, not just because of them, even for me, because when you feel hatred and anger, you feel always that there's something heavy on your shoulders, didn't let you do a lot of things. And since I take that decision, I really start to feel free. And what helped me to do this step when I went once to a school for girls who will go to the army, and I start to talk to them and I start to hear their question. And when one of them, she asked me, what's the thing that you want us to do? I told her, I can't ask you to do anything or not to do, but I could give you advice that if you choose to be in the army, please deal with any person if in checkpoint or any other places that you will serve in as a human like you. Don't look to their color or their religion or whatever, just look to them as a human like you. And that's what really helped me even to think about forgiveness, because when I look to them at that early age of 17 and 18, and to give them a gun and put them in that crazy situation, you could imagine that they will do anything. So I start to look to them as a victim. They are the victims. They are the victims of the law or their government. When you put a child in that situation, you could imagine that he could do anything. So that transformation that happened to me, not just I feel like, even the people who are around me feel it, my family, my friends, my relative. And since I became a member, I started to think about the Memorial Day. And when I saw it the first time in the television, because I couldn't have my permission to go inside Israel to be one of the people who joined, I saw it in the Facebook, and I was really amazed about that day, because, you know, it's a day that to show all the people around the world that if me and my Israeli partner stand side by side and told our stories, and to share the same pain, to share the same tears, to start to talk about our past and our future, and about all the life that could join both sides. So this is an amazing day that it's not, some people think that it's like to put the people who under the occupation and make them equal. We didn't mean that, but we look to each other as a human, and we share the same feelings. When I lost my son, and when I look to the other uh, Israeli woman who lost her son, we share the same pain. It's the same pain, the same feelings. And this is the important thing, to tell the whole people around the world and let them learn from our experience, that if we could stand on that day and talk and hug each other and talk about everything without feel afraid, so everyone could do it. And that kind of even break the wall of afraid between both sides, because it's not easy to break that wall after all these years of conflict. And you know, thank you so much, and I take a long time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Layla. It's so always so good to hear you tell about your story and your journey. Galia, how did you get here to this work?
Well, first of all, thank you, Layla. You really inspire me. It's always new to meet new people and hear their stories. It's enlightening, and it gives me strength to continue to. For me, I was raised in a house where politics were never talked because of the controversy between my mother and my father. My father was a real extreme right-wing person, very strong-minded and very dominant in the house. So I really did not know anything about the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which was on my doorstep. I used to play with children from Silwan, just 2 minutes walk from my house in Jerusalem. And I didn't notice that anything was different between us. I didn't know they were occupied, but I was forbidden by my father to play with them. And that's where first I realized that something was not so equal here. But I never thought and never talked about the conflict. I went to the army. I served in the Air Force for 2 years with no questions asked. I mean, I didn't think of what I was doing there. It was the first Intifada. My husband was, now my husband, then he was my boyfriend. We were high school sweethearts. He went to the army and served in the Intifada in Gaza, and stories that he brought back home were shocking to me. It was like I didn't even think to visualize in my mind what was happening there. In one instance, he was in Gaza for a week, and he was afraid I would be too terrified for him. I would be like anxious, which actually I would not have been, because I really did not know what was happening there. Came back like with a very small booklet with stories for me from there, how he saw things. And then something like started to change for me by his how he described the children there, that they, soldiers, were like all armed, sitting on the rooftops looking for small children, putting up flags and then running after them and making them take the flags down. Although he was full of armor, he was afraid that a stone would be thrown at him. But actually, the whole thing was soldiers running after small children. And he came back home really sad. And then, well, years went by and we lived abroad. And until the second Intifada, we just lived our lives without any contact with the conflict. And then in the second Intifada, it really hit me as someone from Jerusalem. We all knew people who died in the bomb attacks. One of my friends and my brother was medical. He was studying medicine. Bomb that went off in Jerusalem, he would be one of the first to get on site and deal with the injured. And he was horribly shocked about it. It took him years to overcome. And us too, as the whole family, as a very close family, hit me very, very hard. And that's where I started thinking really what my vision was, and to do. And that incidentally, it was my first child was born then in 2000. So I became a mom and I realized I need to do something about this. But it wasn't until 2014 where for the last Gaza invasion, where my husband, who served, still is serving till today in the reserve army, week he goes to reserve army still. He took part in the Gaza invasion, as did many of my friends from the Air Force. And I got really, really, really angry by that. Do something about it and not just go to protests and sign up for Women Wage Peace or whatever, Shalom Akshav, or any other movement I had. And by chance, one night I was in the air raids. There were sirens in Tel Aviv. I was at night, and I saw a bunch of 5 people standing at the side of the street protesting the war in Gaza. And I thought then, that's true. We have to stop it. I mean, it can go on, but maybe this is not the right time. It's the middle of the war. Maybe it's demoralizing my own people. But I slept over it. I actually didn't really sleep that night, but in the morning I woke up and decided I'm going to do something. I have children. I love my country, and it's going to shambles. So I found, luckily, Combatants for Peace, which was the only movement I could find that really worked in Palestine with Palestinians together on the ground in an activism way. First time in Palestine, I remember driving there and entering a Palestinian home, like the first time ever I was in the West Bank even. And I suddenly felt at home, like warmth from the people, the same tea. And I really realized it's family. And like Layla said, knowing the people, it's like just meeting the people and seeing their misery from one point of view, but their livelihoods on the other, and their willingness to accept me, the occupier, in their house. It was astonishing to me, and that's the engine that allowed me to continue, because doing the activism itself, really being there, protesting, building the ruins of the demolitions, doing those things are the way life can really go on, I think, for me at least.
Thank you so much, Galia. I also remember growing up and knowing nothing about the occupation, knowing nothing about the Palestinian people, and that journey of understanding the richness and complexity of the Palestinian society. Can you give us a sense of what it's like to organize something like this? These are 2 organizations come together, 2 different cultures coming together to organize a very complicated event. So you can give us a sense, how is this organized in the committee? How do decisions are being taken in a mutual way? And also, if you can touch on, how is this perceived by your societies when you meet your societies over the years, now that it's been around for 16 years? Is the reaction different, and how is it how is that take?
Okay, I think I'll start from the last part of your question, because they're very different questions. Well, as you said in your introduction, it started in a very, very small group of bereaved families themselves, who decided that they want to remember their lost ones with hope. And working together was the only way they could figure out that hope could be born from this very, very dark place they were in. And they only wanted to remember their lost ones together with the other people who are severely impacted in this. So it started with only them, and once it started to grow, they asked the Combatants for Peace to help organize it because it started to grow and because it started to be more of an activism statement. It became from a very small group of people. Once it grew, it already became more like a public statement, more a political statement, saying that occupation is doing this, that we are losing our loved ones and our country to this horrible occupation. And so together, the people who actually lost their close ones and Combatants for Peace as activists on the ground came together from the two different maybe sides of what you can see as in the ceremony, the very personal bereavement and the more active way of putting this on the table, this issue of the occupation on the table. So I think that's the connection between the two, for me, at least, the two movements. And yeah, Layla, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that in our society as a Palestinian, there's two kind of people who some people think that it's not like we can do anything and what we are doing is will never achieve anything. But I told them no, if we still have hope, we think that everything will change, because the change will never come from the governments. It will come from the people like us who start with one step until we reach the 1 mile or more than 1 mile steps. So we have two choices in this life, even in this ground. One of them is to live together and to share everything together. And the other thing is to continue this conflict. And I don't think that anyone would like to be in this conflict at the end of his life, because every one of us tried to find a beautiful life to his children and to his grandchildren, to new generations. So no one liked to live in this kind of conflict, because we didn't achieve anything, just we lost all the people that we loved during these years and nothing happened. But we still have hope that we could do something as people. When me and Galia sit together and talk and the other people could saw us, they will start to think, was the thing that make them so close together? We want to hear their stories, and they try maybe. And one of the most important things that we do in the Burn Circle or even Combatant for Peace, that dialogue meeting, which led both societies to listen to the others. And this is the most important thing, that maybe it's not maybe, but it's the truth, that for the Palestinian, most of them, they didn't saw the Israelis just as like soldiers in the checkpoint, or when they came to their villages or the places that they live in. And when you sit with other women like you and start to understand that she's a woman like you, so that will give you a chance and to rethink about maybe a lot of things that you wouldn't understand it before. Like when I joined the first meeting with the Israeli women, it was the most amazing opportunity that I have. In the beginning, that I remember that both of us were afraid from the others, and everyone like afraid, didn't want to talk to the others. But at the end of that day, both of us were dancing together, and that was amazing how just in one day, both of us changed our opinion. So this is one of the amazing things that we do in both organizations.
we talked before the conversation about the interest you have from around the world about the fact that it's even possible to have a reconciliation process in an ongoing conflict that in this way. I wanted to ask you, you have the parallel narrative experience as a program that the Family Forum does. How do you do this parallel narrative experience without equating the occupy and the occupier? So how, without it making it looks like it's a symmetrical conflict. So how does Family Forum manages that that tension, so to speak?
This project is about to bring the both society and sit, as I mentioned before, and for most of the time, it's the first time for both sides. They sit 8 days and maybe for 3 months that we sit together and we start to talk about, everyone start to talk about his experience. We start to have like activities during this 8 meetings, and we went as Palestinian to Jerusalem, to the Museum of Holocaust. Remind me about the name, I forget it.
Yad Vashem.
Yeah, Yad Vashem, sorry. So it's for the most of the Palestinian, it's the first time they believe that it's true, because most of us, yeah, we heard about it, but we wasn't really convinced. So when we went there and started to hear the stories, and it was something really touched our hearts, how the time that they face in that during that years. And for the Israelis who went to see a village, it was exist before 1948, and now it's demolished by the Israeli government. Most of them, they said that when we came here before, when we were children, they told us this land was empty, no one was lived there. So it started to explain for both sides about the history. And even we bring 2 professors, one Israeli and one Palestinian, they start to talk about the history and about everything during, the years and what's happening exactly before and after 1948 and 1967. And they start to explain everything. And it's really a great opportunity for both of us to learn many things about each other during this 8 meetings. And I think maybe it's the only chance for both sides to have this a chance to sit and understand about the society, about the religion. Sometimes we talk about religion, sometimes we talk about the history, about everything. So we have many activities during this, and at the end of that project, we didn't just finish and everyone got to his house. No, we have other kind of project that in my group, we were just women. We created a project that the Palestinians start to learn Hebrew and the Israelis start to learn Arabic. And that was amazing that when we start to learn that, sometimes we join and every one of us start to talk like me. I start to talk in Hebrew, and that was amazing how I like to share my partner that I start to learn to talk to you in your language. And this is amazing thing. And this is a chance to say to the other, I'm human like you. I'm not a victim and you are not the occupier. And, we start to look to each other like that. And sometimes I think that we should start to understand and realize some meaning of the words. Like when I say my enemy, what's the definition of enemy? So this is the thing that we should start thinking about, and this will help us so much. And we have many other projects in the Burn Circle to work with people on the ground as combatants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I encourage everyone to put your questions in the Q&A or the chat. Jenny would like to sorry for your son and in the terrible injustice, and thanks you for your work. Galia, I'd like to ask you about combatants and the type of joint nonviolent resistance that the organization does, especially around the South Hebron Hills in the standing against settler violence and the demolished houses and the government's plans to the fear of expulsion, in doing that together. A little bit about that work and how does one model something like this?
Yeah. Well, we have all kinds of activities in combatants. Like we have regional groups, and each group like does the things that the region feels that is necessary at that point in time. So it's we do advocacy, we try to go to diplomats and so on, but most of our work is really on ground, like you said. For example, in the South Hebron Hills is now the settlers are going wild with a lot of violence there. So we do several things. One is accompany the Palestinians in their work in harvesting and in planting, in order to prevent the settlers from coming to destroy and to actually attack them. Sometimes we can't prevent it, to both to help the Palestinians and to tape it and to try to bring it to the news, at least for people to know what is happening there. And other instances, we try to help the Palestinian local people stay on their land if it's protesting and trying to ruin things for the government around, or by bringing them back to abandoned places like we did in Saroa, where you just stand still with in a land. We do it, we sleep there with them, like in Khan al-Ahmar too, just sleep at the place that is supposed to be the most, or was once the Palestinians were thrown out by the army or the settlers, and we just sit there and help them and protect them by also having Israelis with them. The media is more interested, and it's just also we have the ability to bring in more partners. We partner with a lot of other organizations. For in Saroa, it was if all that's left, and if not now, and other movements, so, and also Palestinian movements. So that's a great gain by pulling in together with the other movements. So that's a lot of what we do. We try to group the village, large amount of people in, and with greater and greater success each time, and more people in the circle of nonviolence.
That's wonderful, and the movement is growing. I have the big honor of serving on the American Friends of Combatants for Peace. And for the first time, it's 50-50 Jewish and Palestinian. And we feel the energy and the growth in these relationships are what makes this ceremony possible. We love it if you can share a little bit about these days before the ceremony. I know, Galia, you're exhausted because you have to do a lot of speaking. Layla, I know you
No,
have to
it's
deal
not
with a
because
lot.
of the
A
speaking
little bit
I'm
about,
exhausted. It's other
yes,
things that we
in the
do for the
planning.
ceremony. We've been working
Can you
on
give
it
us a
for
sense?
7 months. It's not only for the past few days. We have committees for each and everything in the ceremony for bringing it all together. We have the Combatants for Peace and the Parent Circle working together, and Israelis and Palestinians working together, and everything apart from the content and all of that, it has to be translated. It has to be moved from one place to another, and so on. So it's a lot of very detailed work. And these days we're just pulling it all together into. I've been today to the location of in Israel. We have 2 locations this year, like we had last year. One is in Tel Aviv, one is in Galia, where I can't exclude I can't tell you where it is going to be, but I've been to the location today, and just figuring out where the people will come in from. Where is the Rana choir going to go down into the stage, and how people are going to come in with the COVID, and do they have to have masks? Do they have to have? So it's all very hectic. All is in the air. There are a lot of people involved. All with goodwill. It's a lot of coordination.
Thank you. And Layla, you'll be speaking at the ceremony, and you said you almost have the speech done. Can you share with us a little bit about the last days before and this whole time before the ceremony?
In fact, we have a hard time because of preparation, and we do some kind of film sometimes to because we didn't know if we have kind of, sometimes something maybe could happen and we couldn't do it right. So we try to make it in a good way and be sure that everything will go as we planning to. So we are trying to make everything in a good way. So we try to finish everything now, and I have my speech, and you could hear it that day. I will never say anything about it. And I was maybe wrote it maybe 6-7 times because, it's not easy to talk about the whole things. And it's an important ceremony. So you should be sure what you are just going to talk about. But I feel amazed because I'm waiting, and I want really to tell everything about my story and about the transformation that happened to me. And I know that this will help people around the world, not just about the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews. Even it helped maybe the mothers. How could they deal with their children at the same house? And maybe for other people who have other kind of conflict in their countries. So it's so important for us, and we try to make it in a very, very good way. And it's not just for me. I will speak in the Memorial Day, and even after the Memorial Day will finish, we have that rooms that we will start to have Zooms and start to talk about again about our personal stories, about the both organization. I start to talk about everything. So anyone who want to hear to hear much more about it, who could join with us in Zoom after the Memorial Day. There is a lot of things, in fact, we could talk about, but maybe we'll let it for that day. And
I can say that
one
you'll
of
have
the,
one special viewer. Richard Gere is probably going to watch you, so he very generously sent us a video clip of quite a few minutes of him talking about the conflict, and exactly what you said, Layla, that it's so important to show the world how we are dealing with this as an example for how conflicts can be resolved without looking back at narratives, but making a new narrative from the two, making a third one that is different.
And make sure to sign up for the ceremony. You'll get an email with all the information about the post-ceremony conversations. These are extraordinary. And if I'm not mistaken, the last year it worked out. This year it'll be a little different, but sign up for the email for the ceremony to know. We have one question here about is Combat for Peace or any Israeli group working to get Palestinians the COVID vaccine? I know there's an ongoing campaign to get Israel helping Palestinians get vaccinated. Maybe a couple words of that, and then I can sum up the other questions.
Well, we see it as definitely Israel's duty and obligation to take care of its occupied population, and we launched a campaign ourselves about it. We were in the newspapers. We had several articles about it, and we joined the other campaigns. We're definitely, it's astonishing that we're not doing it. It's legal obligation that we're just ignoring.
And the campaigns online and the Combatants for Peace social media, you can help amplify it and help out. So the two questions, there's a bunch of questions here about the same thing, and maybe you can tie them in your closing remarks. People want to know, how do you deal with the strong pushback against this event from your own society? Sending you, calling you essentially, I was called a traitor for participating in this work, which is very difficult. How do you deal? We have a bunch of questions about the response to that, to those questions. I just want to say that when all be said, when people say to her, object to her doing this, she says, just come, just be here, and then feel for yourself. And there's something very powerful at first coming before you objecting. But I know that's a big ask from a lot of people in the community that sees this as some type of a betrayal of our people, or the Palestinian people. And people want to know what is your response to that strong pushback? And maybe you can tie it in with your closing remarks, what you want to leave us with. Anyone can start.
Maybe I could talk about this, because for me, as a mother who lost her son, it's in the Palestinian society, they respect the people who lost their beloved ones during the conflict. But at the same time, when they saw us deal with the Israeli, they start to say not just that we betrayed, as we are making normalization. So I didn't feel angry, because I was in their position one day and I could understand what they are thinking about. So I started to talk to them from my own experience, and how could I, for 16 years, was refused to talk to any Israeli person. And I started to talk to them from our own religion, that there's a scripture in Quran said, you can't judge the whole people because of mistake of one person. So when you start to talk to people from mind to mind and heart to heart, they will start to understand and realize that if me as a mother who lost her son could forgive and could understand and could stand with her Israeli partner, they start to, even if they didn't like to convince, they will respect your choice. When they saw that your pain, when they could understand what the thing that you was going through. I will say just a short story. Before 3 years, when I went to Italy with the Burns Circle Family Forum to Italy and a conference. So I went to Jordan to see my family, and then my father started to say that I shouldn't be with the Israelis and they are our enemies and all this, these words. And then I told him, I want to ask you something. You know that my son died. Do you know the story? And he said, no. I told him, after the second intifada, the Israeli government didn't give me my Palestinian ID. So for 11 years, I was stuck in Bethlehem without seeing you, couldn't go back to Jordan. Did you understand or realize what happened to me during this 11 years? He said, no. I told him, how could you judge me? How could you ask me to do something or not? This is my life and this is my own choices. And I'm the only one who could take a decision. And my father was really shocked because it was the first time I talked to him like that. And I was shocked because I started to have that I have power to talk to people because I'm really convinced about it. And this is the important thing. When you believe it from inside, you could convince anyone else. And even if he are not convinced, he will respect you and he will say, like my father, he said, okay, if you want to do this, it's okay for me, you could do it. And I'm not angry or sad about you, but I still have my own opinion, but I respect this. So this is one of the important things that not just to convince the people, if they are not convinced about it, they start to respect what you are doing. And this is the beginning, I think. When you respect someone, after that, you start to understand and realize what they are doing. And this is a good chance maybe for him to start to think about that too. Even if he wasn't convinced at the beginning, like me, I wasn't really convinced when my friends started to talk to me about the birth circle. I was said in the beginning that he's crazy and I will never do that. And now when I look to myself after 4 years and how I start to speak, so it's really something amazing. So I can't blame anyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always so amazing to hear you speak, and it's always so inspiring. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here,
you.
Laila. Galia, would you like to
Yeah.
answer and have some closing remarks?
Yeah, well, for me, being called a traitor and so on, it hurts me because I feel that I am so patriotic and I'm giving so much to my country by choosing this way. My kids are in the army, my husband, I pay taxes, I'm a good citizen. But and being called that is one thing, and being spat on and urine thrown at you is another way of experiencing it. In the, I don't know how much you know about it, but in the ceremony in Park Yalkon, we had like a commando against the bullies there. They were a very big bunch of people who were. We just made ourselves as a barrier between them and the audience coming into the grounds, and I came out of it totally wet on my back from spit and urine, and but with my head held really high. I remember it was like somehow so encouraging that I know I'm in the right place. At least we are heard. I mean, the amount of people coming to object, and we hear it also all around, and we are in the news now and so on. At least someone is watching and listening, and something will eventually drop in through the cracks. And so I feel that we're doing the right thing, and I feel that I have such a conviction that this is the right way and the only way to save my country. Actually, to end occupation is to save Israel, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much for joining and sharing your stories and sharing your work. Make sure everyone to join the joint memorial ceremony on the 13th at 1:30 Eastern time, and sign up for the ceremony. Thank you so much, Layla and Galia. Thank you so much for the staff of both American Friends of Parent Circle and American Friends of Combatants for Peace for helping us put these together. Thank you, the staff of Partners for Progressive Israel, Dinesh, Ron, and Julie and Karen, of course, for all you did to make this discussion happen. And thank you for everybody for joining Conversations with Israel and Palestine. We hope you enjoyed it as we did. And if you want to learn more about upcoming programs, please visit our website, progressiveisrael.org, and you can make a contribution. Thank you so much. Stay safe, everybody, and we hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.